My wife cheated after I sold my car to fund her business, so I took the profits, vanished, and left her drowning in debt and regret. I'm a 32-year-old guy, and I used to think supporting your spouse's dreams was what love looked like. That's what I told myself anyway, as I watched my own passion shrink in the rearview mirror while hers took center stage. My wife, Kayla, was this magnetic force, creative, determined, a woman who could walk into a room and have everyone leaning in. She had a vision, a dream of launching her own interior design brand. From the day we met in our mid-20s, she talked about it like it was destiny, and I believed in her. God, I believed in her more than I ever believed in myself. When we were dating, I'd come home covered in grease from the garage, babbling about the engine I was rebuilding. She'd nod, distracted, already sketching mock-ups of showrooms and Pinterest boards. I didn't mind. Her ambition was part of what drew me in. It made my simple love for vintage cars feel small by comparison. I figured that's what relationships are, give and take. So we got married 3 years in. Small ceremony. Nothing flashy, just friends, family, a few fairy lights strung across my buddy's backyard. I remember standing there looking at her glowing in that dress thinking, this is the best decision I've ever made. But real decisions come later. Quiet ones, like when she came to me with big eyes and said, "Babe, if we're serious about this business, we need to invest in it like it's real." I knew what she meant before she even said it. The Mustang, my '68 fastback, fully restored, cherry red white leather interior. My pride, I sold it 3 weeks later. She kissed me and whispered, "We're building something together." And I believed her. I just didn't realize the only thing being dismantled was me. The day the wire hit our joint account, Kayla was already ordering samples and paying deposits like the money had been burning a hole in her soul. I watched her pace the living room on speakerphone with suppliers, Pinterest boards printed out and taped all over the walls, calling it our war room. She'd flash that beautiful smile and say, "We're finally doing it." And for a while I let myself feel proud, like maybe my sacrifice meant something. But it didn't take long before we turned into she. I became the unpaid intern in my own house. She had me running around town picking up swatches, assembling furniture, doing supply runs because it's cheaper if you go yourself. I'd get home from my full-time mechanic job, saw covered in grime, and she'd ask me to help stage a photo shoot or load the van for a pop-up shop the next day. I told myself it was temporary, that once the business found its feet, she'd acknowledge all I'd done. I remember one night I asked, half joking, "So when's the company Christmas party? I hear the warehouse guy deserves a raise." She didn't even look up from her laptop. "Don't be petty, babe. You said you wanted to help. That stung. Not because of what she said, but because I realized she wasn't wrong. I did say that, but I never said I wanted to disappear. Our savings were gone. My car was gone. My evenings and weekends were hers. Yet somehow every success was hers too. On Instagram, she was this solo powerhouse, girl boss or self-made, design queen. She never once tagged me. Never once mentioned I was the reason she had a startup at all. And still, I swallowed it. Because love, I told myself, means staying even when it hurts. Even when the silence in your own home gets louder than 1,000 engines. It started small, missed dinners, unanswered texts. "I'm just busy, babe." Kayla's business was picking up traction, and with it came a wave of new connections. She started attending expos and conferences in other cities, taking selfies with influencers and tagging brand sponsors. I'd scroll through her posts at work and notice how the captions slowly shifted from we to I. I built this. I dreamed this. I made it happen. I'd laugh it off to my co-workers, pretending I was proud, but deep down, something hollow was growing inside me. At home, it felt like living with a stranger. Her phone was glued to her hand, always face down when I walked into the room. When I'd ask who she was texting, she'd sigh like I'd just ruined her day. Clients, obviously. "You wouldn't understand how this industry works," she'd snap. One night, I caught a glimpse of her screen. A man's name I didn't recognize. The messages disappeared before I could process them. When I asked about it, she rolled her eyes and said, "You're being paranoid again. This is why I can't talk to you about anything." That word, again, hung in the air like smoke. I stopped sleeping properly after that. My mind raced every night, trying to convince itself she was loyal, that she was just stressed. But deep down, I knew the woman I married wasn't the same woman who shared my bed now. The business became her world. I was just a prop in it. She'd pose us together for Christmas photos, smiling like we were this unstoppable team. And the moment the camera clicked, she'd step away, phone in hand. Scrolling again, that's when I realized I wasn't her partner anymore. I was her audience, and the worst part, I still wanted to believe the show was real. It happened on a Thursday night. I remember because I came home with takeout from her favorite Thai place, hoping maybe, just maybe, we could sit down like we used to, before the hashtags and sponsors and ring lights. I walked in, called out her name, and found her on the balcony, wine glass in hand, staring at the skyline like she was trying to disappear into it. I handed her the food, and she didn't even look at the bag. Just said, "We need to talk." Those 4 words hit harder than any scream ever could. She didn't sugarcoat it. Kayla had met someone at an industry event. A brand manager who really gets her, who sees her potential. I sat frozen, fingers clenched around the plastic bag, listening to her calmly explain how our lives had simply grown in different directions, that it wasn't about me, but about her evolution. Then she said the line that cracked something deep in my chest. "You sold your car and your time to build something that was never yours." I needed a partner, not a passenger. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream. To ask her how she could say that when I was the one driving the van at 5 a.m., the one who paid the first invoice, who lifted every damn shelf into her pop-up booth while she was getting her makeup done. "You used me," I whispered. She sipped her wine and didn't deny it. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room, lights off, staring at the dim blue glow of her laptop still open on the couch. Her world continued spinning. Mine had just shattered. I kept hearing her voice echo in my head. I needed a partner, not a passenger. And for the first time, I started wondering if she ever loved me at all. I didn't leave right away. I wish I could say I had the strength to walk out that night and never look back. But the truth is, I stayed. For weeks, months actually. I told myself it was about sorting out finances, the business, the lease. But that was a lie. The real reason was worse. I was still waiting for her to say she made a mistake, but she never did. Every morning felt like choking on silence. She'd glide past me in the kitchen like I was furniture, talking on the phone, laughing. Sometimes I'd catch a snippet. His name, I think, was Marcus. I'd flinch when I heard it. I stopped asking questions because the answers were always knives. Her indifference was more brutal than screaming ever could be. "I'm not going to keep apologizing," she said once, when I brought up the affair again. "I told you the truth. You're the one choosing to stay." She was right. And somehow that made it worse. I started drinking. Not blackout drunk, just enough to blur the corners of my days. I stopped returning texts from friends. One of them, Eli, asked me to grab lunch and I snapped, "I'm busy." I wasn't. I was just ashamed. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about the Mustang. I remembered every hour I'd spent rebuilding that engine, every cent I'd scraped together. That car wasn't just metal and paint. It was me. And I gave it up for a woman who now looked at me like I was a stain on her curated life. One night, I walked past the mirror in our hallway and barely recognized the man staring back. Sunken eyes, hollow face, silent rage. That was the night I finally admitted it to myself. She didn't break my heart. She broke me. Just when I thought I had nothing left to lose. The universe decided to twist the knife. Out of nowhere, Kayla's business blew up. She landed a feature in a trendy home decor magazine, something about 10 women redefining modern interiors. And suddenly, her inbox was flooded. Sponsorships, licensing deals, podcast interviews. A major home retail chain reached out with interest in a branded collaboration. I overheard the call. 6 figures, easy. I should have felt bitter or angry. But what I felt was numb. Because the truth was, I built that foundation. I registered the LLC, I filed the permits. I negotiated the vendor contracts. Her empire had my fingerprints all over it, whether anyone wanted to admit it or not. When she brought up the deal, her voice was sugar-coated and calculating. "I think we should keep things professional, for the sake of the company," she said. "If we act like a team, it'll help the brand image. We both win." I stared at her across the table, and for a moment, I didn't see my wife. I saw a CEO talking to a liability. Still, I nodded. "Sure, let's make it work." But something shifted in me that day. A flicker, a crack of light cutting through the darkness. She didn't know I still had 50% ownership. She forgot. Or maybe just assumed I'd roll over like I always had. That night, I dug out every contract, every email, every document with my name on it. I backed up files. I saved records. I even called a lawyer under a fake name, just to understand my options. Kayla thought I was broken, but I wasn't broken. Not anymore. I was quiet, and sometimes the quiet ones are the ones planning the loudest exits. From that point on, I played the role perfectly, smiled when she needed me to, showed up at events, clapped during her speeches. I was the supportive husband again, just muted, invisible, harmless. She didn't notice the difference. Or maybe she didn't care. But every move I made was deliberate. I wasn't helping her anymore. I was documenting. Every receipt, every vendor email she tried to hide, every late payment notice she shoved in a drawer, I scanned them all. Quietly, methodically, like I was dismantling an engine one bolt at a time. What she didn't realize was how deep the debts went. She'd been borrowing against the future, taking out short-term loans in the company's name, leveraging contracts she hadn't even secured yet. The brand looked shiny on the outside, but under the hood, it was falling apart. And my name was still tied to every liability. I met with a financial advisor, Marta, sharp as hell, who looked over the papers and said flatly, "You're not just owed half the profits. You're on the hook for half the fallout too, unless you exit the right way." We worked out a plan. If I triggered the right clauses, I could liquidate my share and pull everything before the ship sank. But I had to time it perfectly. One wrong step and Kayla could spin it as sabotage or drag me into legal hell. Back at home, she was still living like a queen, ordering wine deliveries, planning brand retreats, laughing with Marcus on speakerphone like I didn't exist 3 feet away. Every time she left the room, I noted another transaction she couldn't cover. I used to feel crushed under the weight of it all. Now I was just watching the scaffolding rot, and I was ready to step away before the whole thing collapsed, on her. The final straw wasn't some huge betrayal. It was a toast. We were at a gala. One of those industry things packed with influencers, fake smiles, and overpriced wine. Kayla had been hyping it for weeks. "This is our moment," she said, handing me a freshly steamed suit and expecting me to show up and smile. So I did. She floated through the crowd like royalty, all lips and laughter, clinking glasses and snapping selfies. I kept to the sidelines, nursing a drink and watching her perform. The big moment came when she took the stage to accept some Rising Star award. She gave a long, glowing speech, thanked her mentors, thanked her design team, even thanked Marcus, by name. Said he pushed her to new creative heights. The audience chuckled, thinking it was cute. She didn't mention me, not once. Not the man who drove the van, not the man who sold his soul and his car to build the foundation she stood on. I felt my jaw clench so hard I thought I'd break a molar. As the applause roared, I walked out. Right past the flashing lights, past the valet, past everything. And that night, I made the call. I activated the exit clause in our partnership agreement, buried in the fine print, the one she never read. The clause that allowed me to force a liquidation due to financial misconduct and undisclosed debt. I signed the papers, froze the accounts, sent copies to the board, the investors, the bank. By morning, her empire wouldn't just shake, it would crack. She thought she'd built something untouchable, but she built it on me, and now I was gone, and so was her foundation. She didn't see it coming. The next morning I was already packed. The apartment was silent, sunlight crawling through the blinds like nothing had changed, except everything had. I left my keys on the kitchen table, next to the legal packet. 30 pages of reality. At exactly 9:01 a.m., her phone must have lit up like a fire alarm. My attorney sent notice to freeze the business accounts and initiate the financial audit. Simultaneously, the board received an alert. Co-owner invoking liquidation rights based on undisclosed debt and internal fraud. Kayla called me 6 times in under an hour. I didn't answer once. By noon, her public Instagram post was up. Sometimes, the people closest to you are the ones who want to see you fail. No names, of course, but I could read between the lines, and so could everyone else. The comment section turned brutal. Wait, didn't your husband fund the whole thing? Where's all the money gone? Wasn't this a joint business? Then came the headlines. A niche decor blog picked up the story. Investors started backing out. Clients pulled contracts. And Marcus? He ghosted her the minute the numbers stopped adding up. A week later, I got a message from one of her friends, someone I barely knew. All it said was, "She's not okay. She's losing everything." I didn't reply. Kayla tried to reach out again. An email this time. No subject line. Just a few words in the body. "Can we talk, please?" I stared at it for a long time. Then I closed my laptop and went outside. The air felt cleaner than it had in months, like I could finally breathe without asking someone's permission. She was finally falling, but I wasn't there to catch her anymore. I left the city 2 days later. No dramatic farewell, no final confrontation. Just me, my duffel bag, and a clean break. I'd already closed my personal bank accounts and transferred my half of the business liquidation, just over $430,000, into a private trust under a new name. The lawyer handled the rest. My digital footprint? Wiped. No more social accounts, no forwarding address, not even a burner number. I wanted to vanish, and I did. I drove south until the air started to feel different. Found a small town off the highway where no one knew my name. Rented a modest house near a lake. Bought tools. Rented a garage. And for the first time in years, I slept through the night. I started restoring a '67 Chevelle. I picked up at an auction. It was rusted, bent, needed love. Just like me. No more live streams. No more fake smiles. No more watching someone else rise while I crumbled in the shadows. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't grieving. I was rebuilding. Every once in a while, I'd get curious and ask Marta, my lawyer, how things were going on Kayla's end. She'd just say, "She's underwater. Legal debt. Bad PR. The licensing deal had pulled out. Lawsuits were circling. And Marcus? Nowhere to be found. I thought I'd feel triumphant, vindicated. But what I felt was peace. The kind that comes when you finally stop hoping a person will change and start choosing yourself instead. I didn't destroy her life. She did. I just stopped saving her from the collapse she designed. And as I stood in my new garage, engine oil on my hands, sunlight hitting the fresh chrome, I realized I hadn't disappeared. I'd just finally shown up. It was a rainy Tuesday when her message found me. I'd just finished welding a new exhaust pipe when my phone buzzed. An old email I'd forgotten was even connected to my current setup. The subject line was blank. No introduction. Just one sentence that hit harder than any accusation ever could. "I never thought you'd actually leave." Attached was a single photo. It was my old Mustang, the '68 fastback I sold to fund her dream. Someone had restored it, maybe even better than I had. Cherry red, white leather, gleaming under the kind of light that makes chrome look like silver. The caption on the social post read, "This beauty's finally back on the road. Every car has a story." I stared at it for a long time. I thought I'd feel rage, that old bitterness that used to burn behind my ribs. But all I felt was weightless, like I was staring at a grave marker of the man I used to be. That car was the first thing I ever truly loved, the first thing I ever built with my own hands. And I gave it away for someone who treated me like a stepping stone. Now someone else was driving it. And I was okay with that. Kayla's message said nothing more. No apology. No explanation. Just a line that sounded like regret wrapped in disbelief. Like she still couldn't accept that I had the strength to walk away. But I did. And I never looked back. That night, I poured a whiskey and stood on my porch, rain tapping the metal roof like a quiet drum roll. I felt everything and nothing at once. Some things don't need closure. They just need silence. I used to think closure came in the form of an apology, a dramatic scene, a moment where they admit they were wrong and beg for forgiveness. But that's not how it works in real life. Sometimes the apology never comes. Sometimes you just heal anyway. These days I run a small restoration garage just outside town. Nothing fancy, just me, a couple of younger guys I'm teaching the ropes, and a growing wait list of people who want to bring life back into old steel. Muscle cars, classic builds, machines that were abandoned but not forgotten. One client came in last week with a busted-up 71 Charger. Said his dad gave up on it decades ago. I told him, let's bring it back. And as I watched him get emotional seeing that engine turn over for the first time, I realized something. This is what building something real feels like. Kayla hasn't tried to reach out again. Last I heard through Marta, she's still fighting a pile of legal mess, clinging to whatever brand deals haven't been burned. Her world shrank. Mine expanded. I don't hate her anymore. I don't wish her pain. But I also don't miss her. She taught me the most important lesson I'll ever learn. Love doesn't mean giving up who you are to fit into someone else's dream. I gave everything to someone who saw me as a tool. Now I give my energy to things and people who actually value the hands that build them. Every morning I walk into my shop, the scent of oil and steel in the air, sunlight streaking across the concrete floor, and I whisper the same thing under my breath. I'm home. Not with her. Not in the past. With myself.